Welcome back to the course. In this brand new section, you are going to be learning about arrays. An array is what's called a data structure in programming. We can use arrays in JavaScript to store and organize information. Another type of data structure that you have always worked with is a variable. A variable is great, but the problem with a variable is that you can only store one value in it. With arrays, we can be a lot more flexible. We can store a single string, 50 numbers, or any combination of data types in an array. We can add strings, numbers, booleans, and even another array within an array. Arrays are really powerful because we can add and remove values while our program is even running. The following is the syntax for creating a simple array in JavaScript. We start with our var keyword and then the name for our array. When naming arrays, you follow the same rules as naming a variable. Next, you add an equal sign followed by a pair of brackets. Our brackets here represent our array. We can add strings, numbers, booleans, and any other combination of values to our array. Let's create an array in our program. Let's use an array to represent our to-do list for the day. Let's first create an array. Alright, now I'm going to add a few tasks which I need to do to my array. If you are ever adding multiple items to your array, it might make your code a bit easier to read if you give each item in your array its own line. Let's go ahead and do that right now. There, that looks much better now. Don't forget to indent your values just to make your code a little bit easier to read. So this is how we create an array for our to-do list. In the next lesson, you're going to learn how to access the information in this array and complete our program. In the last video, you were introduced to arrays. You learned the syntax for creating an array and some ideas on how you can use them. In this video, you're going to learn how to access the items in an array. Remember, an array is not one single value like a variable. An array can represent a large list of items. To access a single value within an array, we use what's called an index value. An index value is a number that indicates the position of that value in the list. Let's bring up an array so we can see an example of how this works. So here is our array. Think of an array like a numbered list, and in order to gain access to a value, we need to grab the number of the item from the list. One thing to realize, however, is that the first item in an array is always 0. It's a little weird because you think it would be 1, but arrays always start with the first item as 0. So in this example, our third item in our to-do list actually has an index value of 2. If we want to access our third item, then we need to type the name of the array followed by square brackets. We then put the index value of the list item of the array. So let's make an alert command, write our to-do list, which is the name of our array, and inside the brackets, we're going to put 2, which is our third list item, because remember, the first item is always 0. This example will write our third item in our array in an alert box. If we wanted to access a different item, we just change the index value. There we go. We can see it's working perfectly. Now, let's create a document.write command, and let's insert all the different index values for our list of array. We will start with 0 and go all the way up to 5. I'm also going to take our list items and put them in a paragraph tag just so that they're separated, and it's a little bit more easier to read on the page once they're printed out after. Once our starter code here for our first list item is all done, I'm just going to copy it and paste it, and then all we can do is change the index value to print out each list item. I'm also going to add a couple extra items just so you can see what happens when we try to print an array item that doesn't actually exist. Now remember, the first item is actually the index value of 0. So when we type in 0, it'll print out the first item. And so forth and so forth. It's a little bit weird, but this is just the way arrays work in JavaScript. Let's give our program a save, and let's open up the file and see what happens. Now, you'll notice if we ever try to access an index value that does not exist, you will get an undefined error, which basically means there is no value. Now that's pretty much it when it comes to accessing items in an array. In the next lesson, you will learn how to add new data to your arrays while your program is actually running. In the last video, you learned how to access the items in an array. Now it's time to learn how to add and remove items from an array while your program is running. First, let's look at how we can add an item at the end of our array. Here, we are adding an item to the end of our array using the push method. Try to imagine that you are pushing your newly added item to the end of your array. Using the push method, we can also add multiple items to the end of our array with one single line of code. In this example here, we are pushing multiple strings to the end of our array. Using the push method is definitely the best and easiest way to add items to the end of an array. Now that you know how to add items to the end of an array, let's learn how to add items to the beginning of an array. The method we use to do this is called the unshift method. Don't let the weird name confuse you. It works exactly the same as the push method, except that it puts a new item at the beginning of an array instead of at the end. Now let's use this knowledge to add and remove items from our to-do list, program we created earlier in this section. If we go back to our array for our to-do list, we can see we already have some items listed here. Let's add a few more items to our array. So I'm going to start off by using the push method to push a single item to the end of our array. In this case, I'm going to add a single string here. But remember, we can also add multiple items if we needed. So if we ever plan on adding more items to an array, we can just do it here as well. This reduces the amount of code that we have to write, which is always an important thing to remember. So I think that should be good. Let's save our program and view the web page. We can now see that our new items are pushed to the end of our array. Pretty cool, right? Lastly, let's add an item to the start of our array using the unshift method. This works exactly the same as the push method, except we use the unshift method instead. So let's change this push here and let's type in unshift. There we go. We can see that our items are now listed at the start of an array. Pretty cool. So now that you know how to add items to an array, we can look at how to remove items from an array as well. I'll see you in the next video. Alright, so you just learned two methods to add items to an array. Now let's look at how we can remove items from an array. Just like adding items to an array, JavaScript gives us two methods to remove items from an array. The two methods for removing an item from an array are the pop and shift method. The pop method is similar to the push method, but instead of pushing an item to the end of an array, it pops it off or removes the last item at the end of the array, so to speak. The shift method, on the other hand, works just like the unshift method, except that instead of adding an item to the beginning of an array, we are removing the first item from our array. Now, let's look at a live example of how we can use the pop and shift method to alter the items of an array. So we got our program here, and I'm going to start off with the shift method. In this bracket here, I'm going to add the actual array item that I want to remove from an array. So if I add in 0 here, it's actually going to remove the first item of an array and get rid of it. So all of a sudden, our items will be shifted downwards. And you'll see what I mean once we preview this work. We can now see that the second item has turned into the first item since we are removing the first item from the array. Now, we can also use the pop method to pop off the last item of our array. For this method, we don't need to type anything in here, but what we are going to need to do is print out our other 4 items just so we can see that we are actually popping off the last item in our array. Remember that. The pop method pops off the last item in an array. So in order to demonstrate this, we have to actually print that string to the screen. And once we pop it off, we won't have anything to really store in that array, so we get an undefined message. So using both the pop and the shift method, you can take items from your array from either the beginning or the end. Now that you learned how to add and remove items from an array, it's time to work further with arrays. Alright everybody, welcome to the course. My name is Robin Haney, and in this course you will be learning the fundamentals and the basics of the jQuery JavaScript framework. This course is designed for anybody who is completely new to jQuery. We will start as if you have no knowledge about jQuery and go from there. And this course also requires that you have basic knowledge of syntax, of HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript as well to help you along the way. It'll make things a little bit easier through this course. You don't need to be advanced or anything like that, but just basic understanding of all those three things will definitely help you get started. So throughout this course, we'll be taking a very basic web page with just some HTML and CSS that I'm going to show you here, and we're going to be using jQuery to show off how to do different styling, different animations, all the different things that you can do in jQuery. And this is just a simple page we have here. So the primary focus is going to be on jQuery. We're not going to be building a fancy website using crazy CSS or anything like that. We're just going to be using a blank HTML document here and focus just on jQuery so you guys can understand jQuery the best that you can. And you'll see here the only thing we have is a style sheet link here and a link to a JavaScript file, which we'll actually be putting our JavaScript as well. So that's pretty much all we got, and that's all we're going to start off with. This course is perfect for anybody who is completely new to JavaScript and you want something nice and simple to start off with and work with. So that's all for this introductory lesson. In the next lesson, we are going to talk a little bit more about jQuery and how you can install jQuery to a basic HTML document. That's it for now. I'll see you guys in the next lecture. Alright, so I know you're ready to get started with jQuery right away, but before we can actually start working with jQuery, we need to install it to our HTML document. Now there's a few ways you can do this, but we're going to do this the easiest way possible using a CDN. And a CDN is basically a content delivery network that allows us to basically link to the jQuery library by just inserting the link inside our HTML document. And we have some different options here. You see we have minified, uncompressed. We're going to go with minified because it gives us pretty much everything we need in JavaScript. And this is the code that we need. So we're just going to give that a click and copy it. And I'm going to go into my HTML document. And this is very important. Make sure you post it above the script tag that we already had in our HTML document so that jQuery loads first and then our other JavaScript file loads second. So I'm just going to save this and I'm going to go into our JavaScript file and I'm just going to write a simple line of code here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just type in a simple test to see if jQuery is actually working. And you can follow along with me if you like to test and see to make sure jQuery is working on your end as well. I'm just going to be creating a simple if-else statement here, which is going to test to see if jQuery is detected, then create an alert box that says we are good to go. And then I'm going to add a else statement, which basically does the opposite, that if jQuery is not found, then we will write another alert box that will give us some type of error here. And make sure I add my quotes here. Semicolon, and then end this piece of code. So again, to go over this, we're checking to see if jQuery is installed. And if it is, we're going to create a simple alert box that says we're good to go. Else, if jQuery is not installed, we'll add this error here. So I'm going to save the document. Make sure you save your HTML page as well. Then I'm going to open up our index file. And I'm just going to drag it over here. Hit refresh. And you can see here that our alert box pops up and says we are good to go. So that's it. jQuery is installed on our HTML document and we are good to go. This is by far the easiest way to install jQuery, and all you have to do is basically link to the CDN, which is a simple script tag. So if you guys want, there's a link in the external links sections that'll link you to the documentation where you can grab that link. And once you install jQuery and you're good to go, join me in the next lesson. And if you have any troubles, feel free to ask any questions and I'll do my best to help you get set up and running with jQuery right away. Hey everybody, what's up? How's it going? Welcome to today's lesson. In today's lesson, I'm going to give you guys an introductory to object-oriented programming in JavaScript, and we're just going to touch upon the basics, and I'm going to show you guys how you can make your very first object with JavaScript and how we can begin to access some of the properties and use dot notation to kind of explore objects and just kind of, you guys can see how objects work with JavaScript. So this is just the real basics of objects in JavaScript. And the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys the syntax for creating a object with JavaScript. So I'm in my document here. And the first thing I'm going to do, one thing to keep in mind is naming and creating an object is very similar to a variable. So we can use the let to give our object a name. And I'm going to create an object for creating a cat. We're going to create an object that's a cat. And you'll kind of see how this works. So I'm going to name it kitty. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go equal, and then I'm going to put my little block here. And what this is saying is let kitty be the name of our object, and then our object properties are going to be within these two little blocks here. So we can give our cat, start naming some properties here. I'm going to give it, this is very similar to arrays in a sense. So I'm going to give it a name here. I'm going to use a string, and I'm going to call it my cat Chloe, because that's what my cat's name is. And make sure you put a comma after each little property here. And I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say color be black. Again, comma, whoops, comma, whoop. Sorry about my typing here. Color, what else could we do? We could say eyes. Actually, I'm just going to get rid of the caps here. These don't need to be a capital. Bad syntax. So eyes can be green. There we go. And let's use a number, so we could go something like age. So the age of our cat, and I believe Chloe is actually approaching her 11th year. So let's go that. And I think that's probably everything we want to do here really quickly. So we have name, color, eyes, age, and for our last one, let's put state. The current state of my cat Chloe is she is sleeping here just on the couch beside me. So there we go. We have some different properties here. And be sure to, we're going to end our object with our semicolon here so that our script knows that this is the end. So we can access all of these different properties of our object in JavaScript. So we could do something like, we could go document dot write, and then we could put something in. So we could go like, what we could do is we could say kitty, and then we can access one of the methods here. So we can go kitty dot name. And what this should do is output this property here of our object into the document dot write. So I'm just going to save this up here. I'm going to open up our file in our browser. Just give me 1 second, guys. If we open it up, you can see here that we now have Chloe here popping up at the top. And if we go through here and we change these, so let's say we want to access the color instead, we just change this here to color and save the file. Bring up our document, and again, if I hit refresh, you can see that it goes to the color of black. And just to give you guys another example how it works, let's say we wanted to pull the age of our cat, we could just go kitty dot age. And this is how we can use dot notation to access different properties of our object. So this is a basic introductory how objects work in JavaScript. I'm going to be creating more tutorials over the next couple days that will go more in depth with objects, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick introductory to objects in JavaScript. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys later. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know. So take care. Alright, so in today's video, we're going to talk about methods and objects. So in the last video, we kind of explained the basics of objects in JavaScript, and that we created our first object here. Today I'm going to show you guys how to create a method in an object, which is kind of like a function. It kind of works the same way as a function, and you'll see how this works in just a second. And keep in mind, this is pretty basic stuff when it comes to objects and functions, but this is a good way to kind of understand how they work. So to recap from the last lesson, here's our object up here. We have kitty, which is the name of our object, and we have all these different properties for our objects. So we have a name, a color, our eyes, our age, and our current state of our cat, which is currently playing. So these are just different kind of properties that we can do different things with basically inside of our object. So today I'm going to show you how to create a method, and we start it the same way as by naming our methods, same as these other as a property here. So I'm going to go ahead here and create a name. Let's call it something like current state. And this is going to be the name of our method here. So I'm going to go current state function, because it's going to be a function, right? And I'm going to put my code block here, go like that. And what this function is going to do, we can do all kinds of different things. We could like return a value, we could document.write, we could alert box. I'm going to go document.write just so it's something really simple and you guys can see like really easily what we're doing here. So let's go document.write, and inside here we're going to go Chloe is currently plus whatever our state is. So we can go kitty.state. And what that's going to do is it's basically saying current state is going to be our method, right? Our name. And then what current state is going to basically do is going to be a function that document.writes to the page. Chloe is currently whatever kitty state is equal to, which is plain here. So we could change it to be sitting, eating, anything like that cats normally do. And that'll change what this is basically printed out to the page here. So what we can do is we could go down at the bottom here. I'm just going to kind of put this back up there. Right, so remember that's the end. This is the end of our object. And at the bottom here, I'm just going to do something like, let's say we can go kitty dot, what's it called? Current state. What this will do is basically going to say we're going to take our kitty object and we're going to run the method of current state, which if you guys remember will do basically what this line of code does right here. So if we save this and open up our document, we should have this text here printed to the page with whatever the current state is equal to. So let's open this up really quickly, and I just got to make sure I capitalize that. Actually, I forgot that I actually capitalized that. Got to make sure it's exactly the same, remember? And if we open up our page here, you can see here that it says Chloe is currently playing. So once again, if it looks like it's working pretty good, so once again we can change this to be whatever we want. So let's say we had something in our object that changed this state to, like, once the cat did this, it would change this to eating. We save it, we open up our page again, you can see it now says Chloe is eating. And we could do all kinds of different things with basically put anything we want in here. We could put like an alert box, so you can go alert, and once again that will output Chloe is currently eating. And we could also return this and then save it to use later on in the function. So there's all kinds of different things we can do, and this is just a brief introductory to methods. So if you guys remember, methods are basically functions that kind of work inside of an object. So a little bit complicated at first, but once you kind of get them down pat, it's nothing too crazy. So if you guys like this video, please let me know. Please remember to subscribe to the channel for more JavaScript tutorials. We're going to be continuing on with object-oriented programming over the next few days, so be sure to check back with the channel for some more lessons. Take care, guys, and I'll see you later.